It's April 2024. Toronto Pearson Airport. Terminal 1. I've just landed with my family. And I remember standing there in arrivals. Bags at my feet, coat still on. The kind of tired that goes beyond the flight and just taking it in. The noise, the scale of the place. People rushing past in every direction. Announcements en français and English. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, this thought just hit me. You actually did it. See, I'd spent years building something in the UK. A career, a practice, a reputation, rhythms, a sense of what I was capable of. And I'd also spent years feeling the ceiling. The sense that the runway ahead of me was shorter than the one I was used to. That my effort had fewer and fewer places to go. That I could keep working hard and still feel like parts of me were sitting unused. Standing in that arrivals hall, I didn't know exactly what came next. What I knew was this: I'd made a decision, a real one, and everything from here would be built on it. That moment is why this podcast exists. Welcome to the LEADr Podcast. I'm Joel. This is a space for conversations with leaders, professionals, and creatives who are building their lives with intention. People making decisions about how they show up, how they lead, and what they want their work to actually mean. We're going to go to real places, difficult decisions around identity, pressure, growth, the moments that define people, and the thinking behind them. So let me tell you a bit about me, because it helps explain why this matters to me. I'm a family physician currently working in rural Ontario, Canada. I was born in Jamaica. I then moved to the UK around the age of 16, where I completed the rest of my schooling and my medical training, and I now practice in Canada. So that's 3 countries, 3 very different systems, each one with its own sense of order, its own hierarchies, its own ideas about who belongs and who needs to prove it. Medicine is one of those fields where the path is extremely clear. You know what progression looks like, you know what counts, you know how to build a career. And I followed that path. I worked hard, I developed, I showed up consistently, and did what was expected of me. But over time, something started to surface. I was doing well, I was trusted, competent, reliable, and I could feel that I was only using part of myself. Those winters in general practice, clinics overflowing, not enough time to do the work the way it deserved to be done, trying to think creatively inside a system that was stretched to its limit. You keep going, you adapt, you find a way through. And then, in the gaps between appointments, in the car on the way home, in that moment before you fall asleep, questions start to come. Is this it? Is this the shape I want my work to take for the next 10, 20 years? What happens if I just keep going like this? What am I carrying that this system doesn't have space for? Those questions became a direction. Moving to Canada is the thing people might assume is pretty easy. Same language, Commonwealth training, familiar enough. Here's what it actually is. It's a full reset. You'll learn a whole new clinical economy, new referral pathways, new billing logic, new medical legal terrain, new unwritten rules about how decisions get made and who has standing to make them. You rebuild credibility from the ground. You prove yourself in rooms where nobody knows your history. You find your footing while also doing the actual work. There's real effort in that. And there's also something I didn't expect: freedom. Because when you have to rebuild deliberately, you get to decide what you carry forward, what's genuinely yours, what you just absorbed from the last system, and what you're done with. Migration taught me that a lot of my identity had become tangled up in one context, and leaving that context forced me to separate myself from it, to ask, what remains when you take the system away? That question changed how I see everything: leadership, identity, practice, even creativity. I want to say something specific here. For Black professionals navigating this path, the challenge runs deeper than logistics. People assume the transition will be smooth. Cultural proximity gets cited, and that same proximity can make the real labor of adaptation invisible. You adapt publicly, you process privately. You rebuild without always being seen doing it. So if you're on that path and you know someone on it, a few things really matter. Find sponsors, people who use their credibility to open doors, not just people who wish you well. Build skills that travel with you. Protect who you are, your culture, your creative life, your community, and play the long game. Leadership is cumulative, and your health is part of the plan. So, LEADr comes from that place, this whole podcast, from noticing how many high-performing people are doing well on paper and still feel like something doesn't fit. They've learned how to operate, they've learned how to succeed, and there's a tension underneath it all, because systems reward a particular version of you, often a compressed version, and you carry more than that. You know it. Different instincts, different ideas, a different way of reading a room or approaching a problem. LEADr is about building relationship that fits who you actually are, your identity, your background, your way of thinking, your sense of where you're going. That's alignment, and alignment takes work. I want to be honest about something. I'm not a leadership guru. I haven't come through a formal academic route in leadership science, and I respect that work. I read it, I engage with it, I learn a lot from it. What I understand about leadership has come from living it, from working inside systems that were designed around different assumptions, from figuring out how to claim my authority from lived experience, from moving slowly over time, from believing in myself to actually inhabiting that belief, letting it show up in how I speak, how I decide, how I carry responsibility. That process is ongoing. I'm still in it. And that's part of why I'm doing this. I want to be in conversations with people who are figuring out this for themselves. Real time. People building with intention. People who want to lead from identity and need to know that it's possible. A big part of this for me is creativity. I'm a musician. I play multiple instruments. I write and sing. And for a long time, I kept that separate from how I showed up as a professional. It's something personal, something I did on the side. At some point, I stopped being able to separate them. Music trains attention, timing, listening, real listening, the kind where you're picking up what isn't being said. You learn to sit with space, to let something develop, to hold silence without rushing to fill it. Those are clinical skills. Those are leadership skills. In family medicine, you hold people's stories across years. You make decisions in real time with incomplete information. You sit with someone in the hardest moment of their life, and you have to stay present. Creativity keeps that muscle alive for me. It also gives you somewhere to be a person outside your roles, and that matters more than we often admit. Medicine asks for presence. Music keeps that muscle strong. More broadly, creativity is how I see leadership itself. Connecting things that don't usually sit together, finding a way through when the map runs out, building something that nobody handed you a blueprint for. That's the work, and it's creative work. This episode is called Build Your Own Lane. That phrase is everywhere. So let me tell you what I actually mean. It starts with a question. Where am I operating from right now? What am I doing because I chose it? And what am I doing because I inherited it? What fits me? What is costing me something I haven't named yet? Then it moves into decisions. What do I keep? What do I change? What do I build toward? These decisions are rarely dramatic. They're mostly small, consistent, accumulated over time. That's how a lane actually gets built. Building your own lane is about alignment, understanding your strengths, your values, your direction, and then structuring your life and work around that. Even inside systems that weren't built with you in mind, and especially inside those. So if you're listening to this, you probably recognize something in it. Things are working, and something doesn't sit right. You don't need to have it all figured out. Start by paying attention. Be honest about what you're experiencing. Give yourself permission to want more than a template. That's where everything begins. So, what can you expect next? Going forward, I'm going to be sitting down with people across different spaces. Some in medicine, business, technology, creative industries, even in the faith-based space. Leadership at every level. We'll talk about decisions, trade-offs, moments where things didn't go to plan, and what happened next. No performance, no highlight reel, just real conversations with real people who are building with intention. If this connects with you, please stay. Subscribe, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Find out more about the movement at LEADr.vip, and that's leader spelled LEADr.vip. So I'm Joel, and this is the LEADr Podcast. Signing out.